Okay, this is a reaction video. This is from Girl Gone London, 4 American things that are actually British. Well, I'm kind of curious to see what these things are. Some of the things I may know, I don't know, but I'll find out. Let me see.
There's nothing more American than thinking you invented everything, but as a dual US and U...
I don't know about that. I don't know that Americans think they invented everything. That's not something that I've always been taught. But okay, it is what it is. We're a big country, so no, I don't think I was ever taught that everything that was invented in America. There were a lot of things that were invented around the world before, because we're basically a young country compared to Europe.
UK citizen, I'm here to tell you some surprising things that even I thought America invented that actually trace their roots to the UK. For example, when I think of America, I think of baseball and...
Well, I think more of football, but baseball is a national pastime, and it's something I did know was actually they had ball and bat games played in mid-18th century England, and they brought it over where the game was developed. So technically speaking, baseball was invented in America, but it really has its roots in England, mid-18th century England, to be fair. I think that's what it is.
Apple pie, but as it turns out, neither of those were our idea. Here's a closer look at 4 American staples that originally came from Britain. Number 1, baseball. Now, baseball is often called America's pastime.
Well, it was not so much anymore, but still, it is a game that is. It's not my favorite game by any stretch of the imagination. It's not something, but I know it actually came from 18th century England, if I'm not mistaken.
A sport that is woven into the nation's very fabric. From Little League fields, and yes, I did play baseball when I was younger, to Major League stadiums, it's everywhere. Yet, baseball's ancestry is unmistakably British. Its closest ancestor is a game called Rounders. Rounders involves a bat, a ball, bases arranged in a diamond shape, and players would hit the ball and run around the bases to score points. Does this sound familiar? Early forms of cricket also contributed to baseball's development, especially...
Yeah, that's the sport that I normally identify where it's closer to baseball's cricket from England. Cricket is not a big game in the United States by any stretch of the imagination, but I know they play cricket in England a great deal, but not so much in the United States.
Regarding the structure of innings and field organization. By the 18th century, bat and ball games had crossed the Atlantic with British colonists. Regional variants sprung up in North America under various names like town ball and baseball. The first recorded American reference to baseball appears in a 1791 bylaw in Massachusetts, which bans playing the game near a town meeting house. Now, there's a very patriotic myth that someone named Abner Doubleday invented baseball.
Yeah, Abner Doubleday. I think that's a myth. That's something that has been disproven.
Baseball in 1839 in Cooperstown, New York. But this is kind of a neat patriotic origin story. The real origins of baseball evolved gradually from British games, adapted over generations in the US, until it became the highly structured sport that we know today. Thus, America's national game has deep roots in English playgrounds and village greens.
And that was something I knew already. I mean, I don't know that I ever. Again, I'm not a baseball fan, not a big baseball supporter, but that's something I did know, that baseball actually came over from England. Rounders, I didn't hear about Rounders, but I didn't know it came from England.
Next up, apple pie.
Now, apple pie is actually not surprising to me, because I think apple pie was something that actually something that made more sense to be, well, not made more sense, but it made sense that it was in England before it was in the United States.
Few things are as synonymous with American identity as the phrase, as American as apple pie. Ironically, apple pie was a staple of English cuisine long before it ever appeared in the New World.
Again, I don't know anybody that's ever claimed that apple pie was actually invented in the United States. I know it's it's popular in the United States. A lot of people eat apple pie in the United States, but I don't know that it was ever. Maybe I'm wrong.
The earliest recorded recipes for apple pie come from England during the 14th century. A medieval English cookbook contains a recipe for something called tarts in apples, which closely resembles a modern apple pie. These early versions included apples, figs, raisins, and pears, sweetened with spices like saffron, and they were enclosed in a sturdy pastry shell. Sometimes this pastry shell was inedible and just used to preserve the pie's filling, but we can see how it evolves over time. When British settlers arrived in North America, they brought their baking traditions with them. However, at first, they struggled. Apples are not native to North America, and the crab apples they encountered were small and sour. It wasn't until English apple varieties were introduced that apple pie became a common feature in American kitchen.
And again, it's more the popularity than the origin. That why you say American is apple pie. But again, it was not. I don't think it was ever at least that I ever recall anybody ever saying that apple pie was invented in the United States. But yeah, I don't know where she's apparently from Florida. Maybe they said that down there. I don't know. I just got back from Florida. I don't know anybody ever said that apple pie was American. But look, apple pie is very popular in America, no question about it. And I have heard the phrase "American is apple pie" before, so she is correct on that.
By the 19th and early 20th centuries, apple pie had become a symbol of American prosperity and national pride, especially during the World Wars, when soldiers often said they were fighting for mom and apple pie. Even though the dessert's roots are clearly British, it was the American imagination that elevated it into a cultural icon. Next.
Yeah, that's true. That makes sense. I mean, like I said, I don't know if anybody ever claimed the origin of apple pie was from the United States, but, you know.
Stop. Halloween. Today.
Well, Halloween, All Hallows Eve, that was something, if like I said, I'm going from memory here, All Hallows Eve, it was a day of the remembering the dead. Halloween was not invented in the United States, and I don't know anybody has ever claimed that, but I do know it has its origins in England. All Hallows Eve, I think the jack-o'-lantern story came from England as well. So yeah, again, I don't know that anybody made the claim that Halloween was invented in the United States, but again, like I said, I could be wrong on that. I don't know any, All Hallows Eve. I vaguely remember the story from years gone by. I need to be refreshed on it, but I'll let her do that.
Halloween in America is a major cultural event with haunted houses, costume parties, pumpkin patches, and trick-or-treating. And they do celebrate Halloween in the UK, but Halloween in America is just so over the top that often a lot of people think it started there.
No, I don't know what's called over the top. It's just you just dress up. Your kids dress up. They knock on your door and you give them candy. It's all it is. I mean, granted there are people who decorate their houses around here, and make them look like haunted houses and things like that for fun. But that again, I don't know if it's over the top.
But Halloween's origins lie far from the suburban American neighborhoods and shopping malls. The holiday can be traced back over 2,000 years to ancient Celtic traditions in Britain and Ireland, particularly a festival known as this. Now, I've looked up different pronunciations of this word to try and say it correctly, but I'm going to need somebody who actually knows what they're talking about to let me know in the comments how to say it.
I think it's Samhain.
Seen everything from Samhain to Samhain to Samhain. So again, if you are in the know, let me know. Now, this marked the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter. It was a time associated with death. Celts believed that on the night of October 31st, the boundary between the living and the dead was at its weakest, allowing spirits to return to the world of the living. People lit bonfires and wore costumes to ward off wandering ghosts. Now, eventually this blended with Roman traditions, and later, as Christianity spread across Britain, the church tried to replace pagan rituals with Christian ones, establishing All Saints' Day on November 1st and All Souls' Day on November 2nd. The evening before became known as All Hallows Eve.
Yeah, that's what I said. I know about that, but I knew it was British in origin. I knew that. I just did. But it's something that I've known for a long time, but something that I don't know how they celebrate Halloween around the world. If they do celebrate it around the world, I know they celebrate it, but United States, just dress up, get candy. It's one night, no biggie.
Eventually shortened to Halloween. Now you can see in here that America so far does not play into this at all, but Scottish and Irish immigrants carried these traditions to America in the 19th century, particularly after the Great Famine. Over time, American Halloween morphed into a community-based holiday, characterized by more child-friendly activities like trick-or-treating. But this itself was descended from the medieval British practice known as souling, where the poor would beg for food in exchange for prayers for the dead. Thus...
Okay, that's more information than I actually had, but I do know about All Hallows Eve. Well, so far as four American things that are actually British, she doesn't really shock me with anything right now, but hopefully maybe the fourth one will.
While America transformed Halloween into the colorful, candy-fueled spectacle we know today, its roots are undeniably British and Irish in origin. And the last thing on my list is the American National Anthem.
Now, the American National Anthem was during the War of composed during the War of 1812, if I'm not mistaken. People tend to think it's the Revolutionary War, but it's the War of 1812.
Moments are as moving for Americans as standing for the Star-Spangled Banner with their hand over their hearts in collective national pride. But the melody that stirs American patriotism comes from an 18th century British drinking song. The music for the Star-Spangled Banner was borrowed from the official song of a gentleman's club in London that celebrated music, food, and drinking.
Now, this was something I did not know. Okay, this is the fourth one she got me on this one. I did not know. I know that the Star-Spangled Banner was done in the War of 1812, but I didn't know it was from a British drinking song.
The song was written in the mid-1770s by a man named John Smith, and it was known for its difficult-to-sing melody. During the War of 1812, Francis Scott Key, an American lawyer, was inspired to write new lyrics to the song after witnessing the British bombardment of Fort McHenry in Baltimore. He was moved by the sight of the American flag still flying after the attack, and he penned a poem that was titled Defense of Fort McHenry. His work...
Yeah, again, I knew about that. I knew about Francis Scott Key. I knew about the War of 1812. I knew about Fort McHenry. But what I didn't know was that it was derived from a British drinking song. I did not know that.
Words were later set to the melody of this Gentleman's Club song, which was already a familiar tune. The song gained popularity over the next century and was finally declared the national anthem in 1931 by President Herbert Hoover. So while its spirit is wholly American, the tune remains an echo of Britain's lively drinking halls.
Okay, well that's interesting. Four American things that are actually British. Okay, now again, baseball I knew came from England. I was aware of that. Okay, I didn't know it was called Rounders, but I knew it came from England. Apple pie was another thing that I knew came from England as well. I find it very difficult that Americans would have invented a dish like that had been around for ages. I also knew about All Hallows Eve. I also knew that was also British as well. What I didn't know was that the national anthem was derived from a British drinking song. She got me on one of four, which is good. Okay, please click like, share, and subscribe for Girl Gone London as well as for me. I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Have a good rest of your day.